Simon here with HSE Drones. I'm here with Bryan in the field, and we are flying a T40 and a P100 Pro. So we're out here doing some tests to see really which drone is going to be better for your application. We're going to go over some of the pros and cons of both systems and do some runs at 2 gallons an acre today to measure the speed and the difference between the two models.
Yep. And y'all, everyone that knows me online, yes, I'm sick right now. I sound like Lindsay Lohan on a bender. So Simon's going to do most of the talking today, but thanks for joining us. And as a reminder for any of y'all that haven't interacted with us or don't know our company, hse-uav.com, and we sell both of these brands side by side. So it really allows us to be unbiased and help you with whatever your needs are. We are, as Simon mentioned, going to model 2 gallons per acre work today. We know that our friends over in California and other places have 5 gallons per acre as a minimum per law. So we are going to do another video on that at another time because, of course, these aircraft are quite different. And Simon's going to tell you more about that.
Thanks, Bryan. All right, so we're here with our DJI T40. This is a model that's been around for a little while now. All of the specs are on our website again, hse-uav.com. 10.5 gallon tank. This model is a little smaller and a little lower speed than we see with the P100 Pro, so keep that in mind as we fly. This does operate on a single battery. The P100 Pro uses 2 smaller batteries. Again, it's got all the great things about DJI, like excellent cameras, excellent communication systems, great controller, all integrated and really easy to use.
That's awesome. We love it.
Great. All right, we're going to start with the controller, power it on. And we're going to begin screen recording here as soon as it powers on, which we need to wait a moment. A little longer. And it does power on very rapidly, I gotta say. Screen record. All right, let's go ahead and go over to the drone. I like to get my battery in first and get it powered on. Establish this connection. At the end of the day, the order isn't too important, but this allows it to get accurate GPS positioning when it's turning on. Doing this all wrong. There we go. Top one's first, bottom one's next. Latch the latches down, unfold the props. Both sides. Remove the strap. Open the arm. Open the other, open the props. It is a very rapidly deployable machine. Our tank is already full. We are going to time the entire operation, but we will not time the actual refill time. Just to keep it as accurate as possible, we'll stop the clock for that. Go ahead and hit begin on our app. Select our field, hit use. We're going to use our template, double check all our settings, everything looks good. We're going to go ahead and hit start. It's uploading. Start the clock, Joy, if you don't mind. We are going to operate 1 drone at a time. We're only 3 out in the field today, so we need to use that to comply with our FAA regulations. Joy is our visual observer. All right, looking great. So it's heading over to the start point in the field. I'm going to keep an eye on it at all times, of course, within visual line of sight. One thing I want to mention that is a big difference between the 2 manufacturers is the DJI system has a different method to enter the field than XAG. So there is an option for connecting the field and entering the field. But there isn't one for returning home. So what that means is during its return home process, when the tank is empty or if it loses signal or any time, it will take a straight line home. Versus with XAG, you can actually set a custom path called an approaching route or guide point planning to enter the field. This is absolutely critical for areas with poor access in the field, as it allows you to fly around things. So for example, we had to move our entire operation forward a little bit because this small tree over here kept triggering obstacle avoidance during the return home path. So that's something really important to consider if you're operating in difficult areas, is you can encounter those types of situations. So it is looking really good here. Awesome.
Comment from Lindsay Brohan here about the camera. How's it look at the very end there?
Yeah, the camera looks awesome. It's very high quality. It is a gimbaled camera, so we can actually point it up and down slightly, and you'll be able to see it here on our recording. But it is phenomenal. I mean, we know DJI knows how to make cameras, and this is no exception. It's excellent. My only comment on that would be, I wish there was a way to record it without recording the actual screen. So it doesn't have onboard storage or a memory card on board. So that is something to be aware of. It's doing awesome. Approaching the other end of the field, you can see it approaching the tree line. Switch back over to our map view. And you can see it here, turning around. Looking great. Spray pattern looks pretty good.
Simon, why don't we talk about some of the differences with, how the application rate would impact, the productivity of these two machines?
Absolutely. So the spraying system on the T40's pumps are quite a bit lower output than we have on the P100 Pro. Which indicates basically it means at higher application rates, the drone has to fly slower. So that is something that we will certainly see with this model. As we increase the rate, the speed will have to be slower and slower. The P100 will certainly be able to fly significantly faster at those higher rates. So those are going to be, 4 gallons an acre and up. Even actually as low as 3 gallons an acre, we have to reduce the speed. So that is something important to be aware of.
Awesome.
Awesome. So it looks like it's coming back. I expect it's going to run out. It looks like it's going to be on the next row over. It will be empty. Does show a nice low tank level on the screen, which you can see here, flying right past. It'll be on the next row over. 52% battery so far. In my experience, I operate both these drones quite a bit. The battery life on the XAG model does seem to be a bit better overall, primarily when you have long entry and exit paths. I do see the T40 struggling a bit with longer distance rows. In some cases, we are not able to empty the entire tank before the battery is depleted. So that's something I've noticed. Yeah, it looks great though. I mean, it is really laying that product out. Of course, it's just water today for our demo. It is going to be empty any moment now, and it will return to home. There it is. Now it's returning home. As you can see, it is taking a straight line back. So if your takeoff location was pretty far from your field and there were obstacles in the way, this is where you could get yourself a bit into trouble. But with proper flight planning, it's not a big deal. You just have to be aware of it. So coming down, Joy, prepare to stop the timer here as it lands. All right, gonna land. Great. Perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and swap out the battery and reload the tank, and we'll be back taking off here shortly. So we'll see you in a moment. So the reason we're not recording this process, well, there's a couple reasons. First, everybody's refill system is going to refill at a different rate. This is our fresh water tank that we normally use for simply washing the drones. It is not a very fast pump, and it's going to take several minutes to load this tank. So if you have a 20 gallon a minute pump versus a 10 gallon a minute pump, it's going to take obviously twice as long to refill. Also, really, the swap out time is incredibly fast. When we swap out your battery, it literally takes seconds to get it back up in the air. So we're trying to take this part out of the equation to really get as accurate a number as possible to see really how efficient each aircraft is.
Awesome. And what do you generally account for time on the ground for refills and swaps with an optimized system?
Yeah, so an optimized system on the ground, I mean, you should be under a minute in terms of turnaround time.
Great.
All right, we got our batteries swapped in. We have our tank full. We're gonna go ahead and go back to the remote and hit resume. Oh, it's still not reconnected. Oh, there it is. Now it's connected. Confirm, and gonna take off now.
Start task.
And then
Aircraft preparing to take off. Stand back at a safe distance. Take off.
All right. So now it's gonna go over to the point where it stopped in this case. Now that's not always true. It will not always start from the point where it stopped. It does depend on the distance. So both of these drones have a algorithm that will determine the most optimal resuming point based on distance. So for example, if it were to stop on the opposite end of this field, it would actually resume on the next row over on this side and meet up to where it stopped, saving time, because the most important thing on spraying drones is minimizing the time in the air without spraying. That's what utilizes so much battery. So it's doing great. Oh, we got some birds over there. Close call, but we're good. That's why you always got to keep an eye on your drone. You never know.
and your visual observer.
Right. It's doing awesome. And it looks like we will finish this entire field. Oh, a correction. Bryan had a bit too much Dayquil earlier. We're not spraying at 2 gallons per acre. We are in fact spraying at 3 gallons per acre. We do want to see the difference at a little bit higher rate. So you'll see our speed and rate is a little bit different than what we originally mentioned at the beginning of the
And we
video.
wanted a chance to actually have to refill the P100 Pro.
Right, so that's the other reason we chose this rate is this field, the P100 Pro would actually complete it in an entire, in one flight if it was at 2. So we want to give it a fair chance in the returning home and resuming the operation. Awesome, so we're, after this row, we got one more and then it will return home. Looks like it will return home from the opposite end of the field. So again, it's gonna take a straight line back. If you're not familiar with rotary atomizing nozzles, one of the key bonuses of having them on drones like this is we are able to adjust droplet size by simply changing a setting in the software. So on this drone right now, we are running at 230 microns, but we can run as high as 500 and as low as 50 on the T40. The range on the P100 is about the same. So fairly similar actual spraying system, nozzle system. You can really see that product laying down with the sun behind it. Like I mentioned, this is just water, but we do have a little bit of drift control product on board, which we always run on these drones. So it looks great. It looks like it's almost done. And it will be returning home here shortly. Always keep your takeoff and landing area cleared, guys. All right, nearly there. There's our camera view again, reaching the end of the field. And should trigger return to home any moment now. There it is. Looks like we got a warning for a moment there that said vision sensors blurred. We might have to clean off those camera lenses after we land. All right, coming back.
How much of an issue is that?
You really need to keep those camera lenses really clean because they are very sensitive to any debris that is on them. So you can get that warning pretty easily. Pretty common. I always keep a stack of cotton swabs and alcohol to clean them off. So here it comes. Enjoy, get ready to hit that pause button on the timer as it lands. And here it comes down and landing. Oh, another thing I like, you'll see it on the recording here, is it points the camera straight down as it lands, which is really handy to make sure you're over the home point. All right, that was it. Great. All right, so here's the P100 Pro from XAG. Again, really the main competitor to the T40. It's a little bit newer to the market, a little bit larger tank. This one's about 13.2 gallons, runs on 2 batteries. It will have a little bit higher top speed than we see on the T40, and generally an overall different design. The way it folds, the way the tank is mounted, a little bit different. Again, specs are all on our website. All of the pricing is there. You can build your own kit with as many batteries and chargers as you need. All right, so we're going to start with the P100. Again, we're going to start with our controller first. Get that powered on. Let's go ahead and start the screen recording as well. Start recording, open the app. All right, let's go over to the drone. Get it unfolded. This one's further away, it's no fair. I have to walk a few steps further. All right, so we'll go ahead and remove this really handy little prop holder that's great for transport. You can see this folds up very differently. It's got these really nice belts that hold the arms in place. Arms fold out, latched. The nozzles also fold on this for transport. Lock them down, lock the belts down, unfold the rotors, unfold this rotor, unfold this, lock that up, hold the belts, lock this down, unfold the prop, lock it down. A few more steps on this because it does fold up a little smaller. As you can see, the nozzles do fold on this one. Drop our batteries in. Turn them on. All right. Let's walk back over and get it set up. We are going to run this without the guide point planning, so it comes straight home like the DJI drone does to make it as fair as possible. All right, just gonna double check that we're connected to our controller's Wi-Fi, and there it is. Awesome. So here's our drone. We'll go ahead and double check our settings. Everything here looks good. And we're gonna go ahead and hit start operation. I had everything saved as a template, just like the other model. And off it goes. Oh, let's try that one more time there. There we go. Alrighty. Awesome. So really very comparable in terms of time. We'll see what the stopwatch says later. I'm not sure exactly what the difference is, but we'll go ahead and have it start down here. Again, we already mentioned a couple things with the flow rate of the pumps versus the speed. This drone is actually, and you're gonna see on the video, is gonna fly significantly faster than the T40 at this rate. In fact, we are going to be hitting its top speed of 13.8 meters per second, or about 32 miles per hour. A couple other things that this can do, there's some more autonomous functions on this model over DJI. For example, we can turn off the way that it turns the nozzle on and off at each turn. Normally, it will turn on the outside nozzle and shut off the inside nozzle during a turn. DJI does the same thing. However, it's an option to disable it on this model and instead run a boundary operation at the end of the field. Now, you can run boundaries on the T40 as well, but you have some more capability with this that you don't have over the T40. For example, you can set it to run just the outside nozzle instead of both nozzles to have a little bit narrower pattern and get it done a little bit faster. You can see it's running its rows here. It's really cruising. Moving quite quick. Looking great. Now, one thing I'll definitely mention is the camera quality on the P100. I'll be honest, it doesn't even compare to DJI. The camera on DJI model is a lot better quality. They're not the best on the P100. That's definitely something that I think could be improved. The signal quality and range, I'll give it to the T40. I think their communication system is probably a little bit more robust. However, the P100 can also operate on a cellular network, and that's actually the original design of these models, is to operate on cell network, meaning the drone and the remote have a cellular SIM card on board. And the way that works is the drone will choose the best signal option, whether it's directly from the remote to the drone or RC mode, or cellular. And in cellular mode, your range is essentially as far as you have cellular service. So if you have good cellular service across your farm, your range is essentially unlimited, and you're not limited by visual line of sight either. So that's something to keep in mind. We are just running it in regular remote control mode now, but that is an option. Well, we'll see it turning around here, doing a great job. Awesome.
Simon, what can you tell people about the transition between rows?
So yeah, the transition between rows. So the T40 actually had a big update over the summer that really improved the transition between rows. It's quite smooth in the way that it banks around the corners. I would say it's comparable to XAG with the latest updates that we're running. I think the XAG model still turns a little smoother overall. Just the overall flight is optimized. I mean, really from the takeoff to the landing, it just doesn't waste any time. I mean, you saw how fast it took off, just got right into the field. Even when it lands from completing, or actually not completing an operation, if it runs out of liquid or runs out of battery, when it lands, it already orients itself in the direction that it has to enter the field to save as much time as possible. So here it is, it ran out of liquid, it's gonna return home now. And we did set the height for the return home the same as the DJI model, and it is set to return directly back. And what you'll see, it is going to actually spin itself around to orient itself as it lands. So here it comes down, waiting for it to land, auto landing. We are running both drones without RTK, so it is asking us to confirm the landing location. With both these models, if you run with RTK positioning, it will land automatically. All right, we're gonna go ahead and load the tank back up, swap the batteries, and get it back in the air. So as I swap out these batteries, one thing I do wanna mention is the XAG drones actually utilize an onboard battery backup system. So when the batteries are out, it's still connected to my remote. It will never lose connection, well, for 5 minutes between battery swaps. So as long as you're quick with your battery swaps, there is zero downtime in between reconnecting the controller. You don't have to wait for GPS. There's also no risk of GPS shift during this time or having to reconnect to an RTK station if you're using it. So it really helps save a lot of time in the overall operation. Boom. Go ahead and start the timer right now. It's going to start up, 3, 2, 1, and off it goes. So you can actually see it started over on this side, even though it ended the operation on the opposite side, because this is a shorter path in this case. So it's gonna start the operation over here, drop down to its spraying height, spin itself around, and start going.
There's some dead time there, huh?
A little bit. Normally, we try to keep the height of the entry and the spraying height the same, so that it doesn't have that transition time, but we wanted to keep them as fair as possible. We had to set the height higher on the DJI drone to clear these obstacles that you see in front of you. So that's the reason why we did that. And now it's gonna skip over to the other row where it didn't finish and complete the operation here shortly. Make sure I can keep an eye on it. Awesome. It's coming right back.
What can you say about battery life? You have to repeat my question.
Yes, yeah, the battery life. Brian's asked me about the battery life on both these drones. The XAG drone has significantly better battery life. I mean, we consistently get higher level battery at the end of an operation. So much so that at higher rates, we can easily run 2 full loads per battery. And I've been able to hit that at, I think around 7 gallons an acre plus. We can very safely do that, but we can even do, if we have short entry routes, we can run 2 loads even at lower rates because it's emptying the tank a little slower. Coming back for a landing. All right, make sure we hit auto landing, and here it comes. Beautiful. Awesome. And we'll go ahead and pause the timer. And that was it, completed. All right, so we're crunching some numbers here and looking at our flights. Starting with the setup to ready to fly time on the T40 was 1 minute and 40 seconds. That's really fast. Comparing that to the P100, the setup to ready to fly time was 2 minutes and 8 seconds. On both drones, we had all of the flight configuration saved as a template, so keep that in mind. That time will change if you're actually setting it up in the field, but we wanted to compare it as apples to apples as possible. It was already loaded on both drones.
And that's going to be a one-time hit per mission.
Correct.
Right. Yep.
Something else I'll mention here is the setup time will differ between drones throughout the day because the XAG model will have a shorter boot up time in between flights because it remains on. Right. And with XAG's controller, being a very simple controller without a screen, it has like a 12+ hour battery life. I mean, I turn it on when I get into the field in the morning and don't turn it off until the sun's down. Yep. Whereas with the DJI system, we're having to swap external batteries every 2 hours. Yep. So we keep a bank of external batteries, chargers, and a whole charging system just for the remote.
That's right.
Now my weak spot is the phone that I'm running, but I have a battery bank that I plug it into and it's no big deal.
It's all good.
So that is something to keep in mind as well. With XAG, it's really designed to stay consistently on.
Yep.
Okay, so first flight on the T40 was 5 minutes and 7 seconds till landing, from takeoff to landing. The first flight on the P100 Pro was 4 minutes and 42 seconds. However, it's faster, and it also covered a lot more area because the tank is larger, and it covered overall more area. It flew faster. So keep that in mind when we look at the second flight. So the second flight on the T40 was 4 minutes and 9 seconds. Second flight on the P100 Pro was 2 minutes 14 seconds. So that comes out to a total for the T40 of 9 minutes 16 seconds and a total for the P100 Pro of 6 minutes 56 seconds.
Pretty big savings.
Yeah.
Big time difference. Now I think,
big time difference.
and sorry. Hey everybody. All right. So I'm back for better or for worse. So if we think about this, big factors that are going to impact this, right, is the rate that's going down. For folks doing 2 gallons per acre, they're going to run through batteries perhaps faster than they are the actual tank itself. So maybe that extra 3 gallons on the P100 Pro won't make as much of a difference. But for rates much higher than that, where you've maxed out the pumps on the T40, that thing has to slow down, which then the P100 Pro is really going to launch ahead. Now we are limited here because we only had 6 acres to do this test in. So if we ran the test 3 or 4 times, you could see that productivity number is going to continue to spread further and further and further and further as the P100 Pro might have gotten 80% of the field done in its first tank versus the T40's, I don't know what the number was, but...
One more thing, Brian, that we haven't mentioned yet is the row spacing or swath of the drone. So this is a really important aspect. We've been seeing, around people talking about the row spacing between drones and that the T40 has a wider swath. Well, we wanted to try that out. So we actually ran a 32-foot swath on the T40, or 10 meters, and on the P100 we did 9 meters, quite a bit narrower. So it also did more passes than the T40. Right. Now, I'm a firm believer, and I think there needs to be a little more research on this, and we're working on this. I think the T40 and the P100 swath is actually very similar.
I think so too.
If not the same or possibly greater on the P100 Pro. One thing that I've definitely noticed is the droplet size between drones. We set them to the same droplet size, and even though we were flying the P100 twice as fast, there's a visible difference.
There is. On its ability to lay product down on target.
Correct. Correct. So that's something that I think will require some more data behind it, but it's just something that we noticed and I wanted to mention.
Yeah, so we gave the P100 Pro a bit of a deficit by having a narrower swath, and it still had those outcomes.
Correct.
And it's not that we think the P100 Pro has a narrower swath than the T40, for example. This video is not about drift, off-target movement, or any of that, any of that information. But you're still going to see just the sheer productivity numbers here. All of the coverage, drift mitigation, all of those things we'll cover in another video. And we've done some stuff. And there's a lot of data out there, especially about the T40. less about the P100 Pro because it's just a newer model.
It's a newer system, exactly. And with time, we'll start seeing more and more data and
That's
testing
right.
on those models, and we know a lot of people that are already doing that, including us.
Great.
So, yeah, I think that's some really good numbers, and we'll probably put all these numbers in the description of the video below if you really want to crunch some numbers. We'll set all of our parameters that we use for each drone into description. So if you want to match what we did and see if that's if that's will work for you, then crunch some numbers for your area.
And we'd love to hear in the comments, y'all, about what other information do you want to know? What questions do you have? If you think if you're in California, you're doing 5 gallons per acre. Keep an eye on this channel, subscribe, and all those things that people say to do, because we are going to do a test for that as well. And you're going to, again, see the numbers of these two continue to widen. But thanks for watching. We appreciate you being here. Also watch our page, because we're going to have another video all about the software and programming differences, because, again, that's a massive impact on productivity. Square, straight up, easy to access fields, that's going to be less important for you. But folks that have not perfect fields, which is most people, that video will also be helpful and really give you a deep dive walkthrough and introduction. Keep in mind, I'm a big fan of that T40. I love that platform. I feel really confident about it as it's having its place on your farm, mainly because a lot of these grievances, if you will, or the shortcomings of the T40 can be resolved and are being resolved very quickly, I'll add, by DJI, just doing software and firmware updates. Since our last video with the original P100, the smaller P100, DJI's made leaps and bounds of productivity differences. One video, we captured more than a 30% increase in productivity by one firmware update. So you got to keep in mind, folks, as you're thinking about this, everything has to do with the software, how the aircraft operates, and that's all software based. Great. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Again, just be on the lookout for new videos, and thanks guys for watching.
All right,
see you guys next time.
See you
Bye.
next time.